He was going out to check the Skunk River. That was what Billy told his mother the night that he ran away. He was 16 years old, and he never had a girlfriend, at least not anyone they knew. Late at night, and he walked quickly to the overlook. He saw his father's acreage and the faint outline of Buxton in the valley below. A former coal mining town, a former guru town with its golden domes and flags en masse. He looked up as the moon broke out from between clouds, and there was brightness on the path and brightness in the fields. He knew that leaving was right. 2 miles from the highway, he veered left towards the lake, taking a shortcut through last year's crop. The corn stalks, once waxy and resilient, draped against the row, leaves eaten to mesh and the color of chalk. The corn had full-on spit its insides out. Billy walked through the rows of corn that stood as gravestones, markers to the skeletons of roots, reaching like hands into the pit of the earth. He reached down and grabbed the dirt, filling his pockets with it until the silt stained his hands and poured from his pants like an hourglass. He had worked these fields himself, harrowed, plowed, detasseled, fertilized. One spring, a tornado had touched down yards from where Billy and his dad were stringing barbed wire at the edge of the field. They sat in the tractor's cabin until the hail stopped and the black squirrel passed, and then Billy's father said, "Get the nails. 10 more yards of fence and it won't matter." Billy got back to work. Now Billy walked east towards the highway, past the silo and his father's shed, which always smelled of chemicals and exhaust, and which his father filled with harrows, plows, the John Deere, and walls lined with metal oil canisters, solvents, and paintbrushes. His father kept everything. Billy would leave everything, take nothing. In his mind, he recalled cornfields whipping by and tasted the dust kicked up by the wheels of the truck as his older brother veered suddenly off-road, and felt the lurch of the truck bed and the sting of twine knotted into a D-ring as it wrung through his palm, and he tried to hold on. In his 11-year-old memory, he had skinny legs and knobs for knees, but his brothers, all 3 of them, were strong and shirtless. They drove on like this for what seemed like miles, Martin, the oldest, driving, the red-headed twins also in the cabin laughing, and Billy in the truck bed. He could only hold on for so long. The rope bit his hands, his stomach went taut and slackened, but it was more than that. He wanted to let go and fall and feel the dust and the scrapes and be alone. He wanted to stop trying so hard. The rope slipped farther and farther, and Billy watched his brother's tanned shoulders shrink. And this time when the truck jumped, Billy flew. He hit the truck bed once and seemed to bounce off, then dropped heavily and finally into the plowed dirt. Trying to sit up, Billy grimaced. Everything hurt. His knees and elbows bled, his gut in his throat. He laid back again in the dirt, and the stillness of nothing was so easy and pure. 50 feet ahead, Martin had slammed on the brakes and leapt out. His stride was hard and long, almost angry. His pupils tightened into fists, and for a moment Billy imagined his brother was coming to knock him in the face. Martin was completely reckless. He loved heroically, almost tragically, did wheelies on the frozen pond in January, gambled on Mississippi riverboats. But he was fiercely loyal. Billy would always cherish in his mind the image of his oldest brother kneeling, with his back to the barn, a cigarette in his hand, and only the faint orange light of sunset over the empty fields. Martin was different. He understood Billy. Martin kneeled down and said, "Are you okay?" "I hate that fucking truck," Billy said, brushing off his bloody knee like it was nothing. Billy looked down and saw something glinting in the dirt. It was the watch he'd taken from his dad's dresser that morning, the same watch his dad polished like a goddamn trophy. He had asked their mother about it after breakfast. "Did you put it in with the laundry?" Now Billy tried to stuff it back into his pocket, but it was too late. He waited for his brother to say something. Martin was quiet for a second, and then he looked back towards the truck. "Assholes," he muttered. "I should fucking kill them." From the ground, the sun seemed to spray off Martin's back, off his bowed head and heavy boots like something bronze and heroic. And Billy in the dust, a gash in his eyebrow oozing thick, coagulated blood, his arm limp, was smiling. Martin reached out an arm out to Billy, and Billy grabbed it with his good arm and pulled up. "Get out of the truck," Martin yelled to the twins, walking ahead. Billy stood for a moment. There was a blue dome of sky with thick muscular clouds touching the fields of corn, whose sway was almost lackadaisical. He watched his brother's back and imagined him walking straight through the horizon like a movie set, past the corn husks, ripping apart the papery blue, which to Billy seemed impenetrable. The twins each swung their legs over the side of the truck bed, and Billy slid in beside Martin. He heard a breeze coming through the crop, and then the hollow sound of the rusted hinge as he pulled the door shut, and he wondered if he would always feel so lonely. Everything was fading. And the wonder of everything, of running until the air burned like fire in his lungs, of anatomy and motors, the way the eye bolt and rotor and bearings fit. The wonder, too, of mother, of swimming, of the turn towards fall. Everything that seemed permanent had an end. It frightened him. It frightened him because it was happening now too soon. The hoplite house of 4 brothers, all born to pull behind them a century of farming, to carry like oxen the heft of acreage, power, success, all was unraveling. It was on that day that Billy knew that his brother, Martin, would not be staying long in Buxton. That night Billy and Martin crossed paths in the hallway, and neither said a thing. It was hot that night, and Billy lay shirtless in his bed, curled around his arm, as if it was separate from him, and he did not sleep. 2 days later, Martin told their parents he was leaving. Billy waited behind the door as Martin stood in the dimly lit den, towering over their father, who dressed neatly, his thick white nails trimmed too far. Martin squared off against their father and looked him in the eyes and spoke clearly and softly. "I've got a job in California," Martin had said, and father stood almost numbly, his crossed arms and wide stance full of sanctity and heft. The next morning Martin came into Billy's room. "I'm going out to check the river," Martin said. Billy scrambled up out of bed. "I'm coming with you," he said, sliding his jeans up over his boxers. "Not this time, Billy." Billy slumped back down into the bed. Martin stepped forward, smiling his wide smile that seemed to put everyone at ease. He nodded. "See ya," was all Billy could muster, and he watched his brother turn and go. That summer Billy did the detasseling, which was the hardest job imaginable, for 2 extra hours each day during a drought. Every night for a month he closed his eyes, and all he saw was corn. Corn mosaics, corn pollocks, corn on trees, corn growing from ears. He saw corn in the reservoir, and corn coming from his father's mouth. As Billy left home that night, running away for good this time, all he could think was no more corn. Woo!